And good morning, everybody. It is 10 o'clock where I live. It is probably something different where you live. This is Nick McPhee. This is Unhindered by Coding. Be here for 2 hours, probably not writing much code. Hello, Zitsu. So today is freezing, by the way. Not that anybody cares, but we have had this yo-yo of weather. We had incredibly hot weather last week. So up in the 90s, which I think would be the high 20s, low 30s in real temperature measurements. And last night there was a frost warning. We had to bring some plants in. Hello, Justus. Wonderful to see you. And we had, of course, turned the heat off in the house. And the house has gotten really quite cold. So I'm just sitting here in my little frozen hovel with my cup of tea. And the company of lovely people. So apparently in either northern Minnesota or the projection was northern Minnesota / very southern Canada near the Minnesota border that there was going to be possibly some snow last night. And they had this incredibly hot weather last week as well. So it's even more yo-yo-y for them. We had a ton of rain Thursday and Friday, which was great. We are super dry and we desperately needed it. We got 1.25 inches. I don't even know what 1.25 inches is in metric. But we got about that much rain. And hopefully the rain barrel is more full than it was, and that would be good. So that's, kind of a reasonable temperature. That would be kind of what I would expect in this time of year. But, we came close to freezing last night. And it's going to be cool for the next few days, and then it'll warm up again. And I was actually hoping to plant tomatoes this week. But if it's going to stay this cold, the tomatoes may have to stay inside. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, so now that we've done the weather report, the problem is I'm going to be out of town for like 2 weeks. And if I don't plant the tomatoes before I leave, then they're going to get really leggy, and my wife will have to look after them indoors while I'm gone. Sigh. The challenges of gardening. We should actually pretend we're here to do programming stuff. As has been discussed somewhat on Discord, it's not entirely clear what's going to happen with the evolutionary computation. No, I don't have chickens. I would like to have chickens, actually. Well, I would conceptually like to have chickens. I think I actually probably don't really want to have chickens. My guess is that would be more of a hassle than I would be up for. But the idea of having chickens for eggs would be kind of cool. But it's not entirely clear if that's legal in town. I think it might be legal to have hens as long as you don't have a rooster. But I don't think our neighbors would be thrilled. And we don't really have a backyard, a back garden. Our house was in the middle of a big square plot, when it was first constructed in the late 1800s. And then in the 1950s, it was purchased by a developer. The same family had owned it for 60 years. And this developer, and I think it was probably not in great shape. This developer purchased it and turned it into a duplex and sold off what would be the backyard as 2 lots. And so our neighbors on 2 sides are now basically in our backyard. So our house kind of sits back in the corner of what's left of the lot. And so we can't really hide things very well. Anything that we do, like chickens, would be kind of out beside or in front of the house rather than behind the house. And so the politics of that get a little complicated. So our vegetable garden, instead of being behind the house like you would expect, is really sort of out in plain view of the universe, in more than one might expect. But you know, it's fine. It is what it is. House has history, and that's a cool thing. So, the Evolutionary Computation project, and I realized as I was getting started, I have no idea what part number we might pretend to be on. I'd have to roll back a long way and look, but we're well in. So I think there have been people take some stuff now and then. Our apple trees are literally right. One of them hangs over the sidewalk. I'm sure some people have helped themselves to an apple or two going by. And that's fine. I mean, you know, I'm not here to try to maximize crop. My attitude toward gardening is fairly similar to my attitude toward the stream. It's like, if I'm having a good time and I get something out of it, I'm good, and I'm not trying to maximize anything in particular. So it's never been an issue. But you know, it's sort of a biology experiment that I can eat some of later, and I enjoy doing. So we've got this evolutionary computation project. I'm now starting phase retirement. Yeah, like herbs in a pot. Actually, even tomatoes. I mean, so in the U.S., it's less bad in Europe, but in the U.S., grocery store tomatoes are just useless. I mean, they are the worst things ever. They're these red plastic orbs that have no flavor. They're just containers of water. And it's just so sad. And especially compared to a homegrown tomato, which is just such a delight by comparison. And so I think that's actually one of the real reasons we care about the garden, is that we can grow, because, you know, things that I can buy, well, fine, whatever, right? But you just can't get a decent tomato in the grocery store here. And so we try to grow a fair number of tomatoes, and then we then have to do stuff with them because of course they all become ripe at the same time, and so you get this chaos of tomatoes in the fall. But yeah, I don't know, probably, but pricing's so awkward because, you know, there's so much. Again, this may be different in the U.S. than in other places, but there's so much subsidy that the price you pay for food is really skewed. Sort of farm subsidies and fuel subsidies and all these different things that manipulate the price of foodstuffs in the U.S. makes it very difficult to talk about the real cost of food. The fact that it's often more expensive to buy fresh fruits and vegetables than it is to buy like Cheetos and a can of Coke, like, really, that doesn't seem like that's probably right or good. And so, yeah, it's complicated on that front. And as you say, figuring in your labor is a challenge. Although I'm a pretty low labor food grower. I try to plant things that require as little effort as possible and hope for the best. I don't put a ton of effort into it. I did spend most of Wednesday morning sifting compost. That was fun. So yeah, but and we're going tomorrow to actually probably buy some plants, and I'll probably have to spend a lot of this week gardening when rain holds off and the weather's not too bad, but such is life. Gotta plant potatoes and peas and tomatoes and beans and cucumbers and melons and some herbs, basil, rosemary, and some flowers like marigolds that help bring in pest control. So lots of planting to do. in the next few days. Sage and time. We have a time plant. Actually, do we? No, I think the time plant froze. I don't think we have a time plant. We had a thyme and a rosemary. We've had a sage, but the sage died too. And some things freeze over the winter, and sometimes it depends on the winter. Sometimes things survive the winter, and sometimes they don't. And that's fine. Citrus is not a thing here. It's way too cold for citrus. We would have to have some kind of big heated greenhouse thing to have a lemon tree. I had an aunt in Southern California that had oranges and limes and avocado trees, and that was cool. But don't have anybody down in that part of the world anymore. Okay, so this project needs a README. So if we go look at, I don't know. Not sure how programming stuff this is going to be, but we'll see. Oh, that's not helpful. There we go. So this is the entirety of the README for unhindered-ec, which isn't much. A sentence that's only dimly correct. At best, it's true about a small part of it. We did add a license. We did add something about contribution, but not much. And so I think today, let's see if we can do something about the README. And we have an issue. README. Create a better README. Does this say anything very helpful? Nope. It mostly just says that we should do something. And actually, parts of it are incorrect because we've dealt with some of these things a little bit already. So let's actually see if we can get somewhere on this little puppy. So issue, find that README. Create a better README. Whoops. Create a branch. Whee. Okay. So we have branch. And this is unhindered-ec. Don't need that. So here we go. And then the question really is, what do we want the README to say? One thing that Justus pointed out somewhere and reminded me of just this morning in Discord is that it would make sense actually to have READMEs for each of the packages. So right now we've got EC core, EC linear, EC macros, push, and push macros. And it would be good to have READMEs for all four of those things, or all five of those things. And having READMEs for some of these might help clarify what their purpose in life is. Which makes sense that you would need READMEs for packages in order to publish them. But also I think it could help us clarify what we're trying to do in these different packages. And as Izitsu has pointed out, the push package is kind of broken a little bit because it mixes two things that really probably ought to be separate. The push package, let me make you go away for a second. The push package has let's close up some stuff. It has the virtual machine, which also then has the so I'm not saying this very well. Most of this is actually how to interpret a push program. So it's really an interpreter for a language that has nothing to do inherently with evolutionary computation, other than that language was created specifically to support evolutionary computation. But other than that, it really doesn't have any EC stuff in it, except for like the plushy genome is arguably, like this part is arguably EC related. It depends on how you want to think about things. This is part of how it all ended up in here together. And then the examples are all completely EC examples. So all 5 of these are evolving push programs to do a thing. And so there's an issue of like, should this be split up? What would that look like? Yada yada. So that's another reason to, have READMEs in all the packages, sort of force us to be a little clearer about what we want the packages to be, and why they exist. And there is an argument to be made that it would be nice if there was a API basically for the interpreter that would allow you to swap out different interpreters and say, here's a push program, evaluate it, independent of what that evaluation mechanism looks like. And we could then sort of have the existing push interpreter, which is incomplete and has its issues, but then also Zitsu's written a push interpreter for part of the language, and I know Justus has got thoughts about push interpreters. So in principle, if we designed a reasonable API, you could swap out the interpreter and have a variety of interpreters as possibilities, all for implementing the same set of, or interpreting the same set of instructions. I don't know how feasible that is really. It would be an interesting design question, but and so Eustace says, I would like some architecture like push spec, which is just some trait definitions, push interpreter, which is a concrete implementation of the push spec, and push stud, which has some of the core instructions, and then EC push. Yeah, right. So your idea of spec is exactly the kind of thing I'm thinking of. Well, I mean, it potentially could be taking it a bit far, but given that we have at least parts of 2 working interpreters at the moment, yours is Itsu and the unhindered-ec one, and I know that Eustace has got thoughts. I don't know how much code there is, but Eustace has thoughts about that. That if there was a way of abstracting out the interpreter, that would be kind of nice. I think one of the things that becomes tricky there is where do instructions sit in all of that, and the implementation of instructions. Do you is there enough abstraction that you can implement an instruction in a universal way that then would work for all of the interpreters? Is that really feasible, and still perform it? Do you force everybody who writes an interpreter to implement their own, have a shared set of instructions that everybody has to implement? Yeah, so I think that part's sort of not obvious. How the instructions fit into all of that, and how to make this work with a set of instructions. So it would be sort of general. I mean, one thing that I've thought about, and this will probably delight Eustace and fill Izitsu with despair, is it would be kind of nifty, and I think one could do this with macros in some sort of clever way. If one could do something like, I don't know, X, I64, Y, bool, Z, string, struct my instruction. No, actually, I think a function. Fund my instruction that takes X, Y, Z, and returns. Oh, actually, what? Maybe we don't even need to repeat that stuff up here. Maybe we just do that. Returns, I don't know, a char. And then, you know, blah, blah, blah. And the idea then would be that this, you would just write these instructions like regular functions. And it would sort out all the pushing and the popping and the fiffling and the faffling. Now that's not going to work for things like shove and yank. Not even sure how it works for dupe, because you would need. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this in the past, but I do think like there is something cool there, and if you could do this in a general enough way, then maybe it would be easier for multiple interpreters to exist and share the world. Oh, I see. So you've explicitly included the pops, where I was just assuming that if you specified a name and a type, that implied the pop. If you were explicit about the pops like you did here, then maybe you could actually create some syntax that would support things like yank and shove. That's a possibility. Another URL. I'm not sure I see how this, because shove's going to require a you're probably so this is the stack we're shoving the value on, and then this is the depth that you shove it to. Whatever. I mean, so we're not doing this today, but I feel like there is like a thing there, and I know that you know, every time I say the word macro, part of Izitsu dies, but I feel like there is like a really genuinely good use of macros here. Gotcha. So I think that like if I was going to just start over again, that would be a thing that would be nice, because then you could hopefully put a lot of the checking and error handling stuff in the macro. Now, one thing that you would need to do is have some way of checking that. It'd be nice if you could somehow say things like x not equal to 0 or something. Put constraints where if the constraint was not met, the instruction would be ignored. And I'm not sure where that would go. But something like that would be kind of nice also. And I think if you got all that in place, right, then you could really just avoid all the error checking, right? And it would just come down to you would just have the body of the instruction, what this instruction does, and that would make it, I think, a lot easier for other people who want to come in and create instructions for their own systems to do that. If there was good support for making instructions in a way like this, it was well documented and wada. But that's again not today's problem. We've had this conversation in various ways several times, but it continues to rattle around in my brain as a thing that would be kind of nice to do. And a place where, well, I have my suspicions about, I do think one can easily overuse macros. This is a place where I think macros would really shine and be potentially very useful. So, okay, going to make all of you go away for now. So now, why are we grumpy? We are grumpy because, it wants an indentation. Can I fix that? Doop. Oh yes, it doesn't like that. That's an easy fix, and that's an easy fix. Boom. Yeah, so generics would also be would be a nice thing. Wrong fix. Did I get? Oh, I lost close paren. There we go. Oh, I see. I got a close paren. Yeah, I put it in the wrong place. Okay. So, thank you. Yeah. So Zitsu, that's the worry, and I really the different interpreters problem seems real problematic there. Like you would have to have some fairly rich API that the instructions would depend on, that would isolate them from the implementation. And then, yeah, I don't know if that's really going to be feasible. But, right, I mean, we may just have to make choices. And I don't know the priority of having support for multiple interpreters versus having one good interpreter with a nice macro system. And I don't know how feasible it would be to have interpreter independent instructions anyway, right? That's, I think, a problem that in my head is not resolved, and would need to become resolved at some point. And it would be nice in a perfect world, but I don't know how feasible it is. And I haven't thought about it hard. So I don't know. I expect that both of Justus and Zitsu have thought about it more than I have, to be honest with you. So, yeah. Okay. So let's see if we can say something here. So this is just wrong. I mean, that says things about how I got started, but it has ceased being true for a very long time. So, and I guess, okay, a question is, should this README be actual, document what's really there, or should this README be aspirational, what we would like this to become in some perfect future? And maybe it needs to be both. So, and that's actually what Eustace just said. So we should maybe say something about what it is, which I'll change this. So I think that those two things, oh yeah, fine, you're going to be grumpy. Those would both be things that it would be good to try to say something about. So, so what is it now? It is, yeah, the Markdown linter is very screamy, as Zitsu pointed out in a previous stream. And I can turn the Markdown linter off, and then just turn it on at the end to clean stuff up. Can I do that? Markdown lint. Or not? I thought I could toggle. Can I really not turn you? Oh, that's what I want. Haha. Okay. Less noise, and then I can turn it back on later. So what is it? Let's say a fairly advanced prototype. Of an evolutionary computation system. Computation system in Rust. Well, here, let's have a look at what you said. Okay, so you're just talking about this bit here. I think these two lines, and actually this idea of splitting up the packages, I think that's a reasonable thing. We can start with that. So, with a focus on genetic algorithms, I think that's a true statement. Yeah. The current implementation focuses on genetic algorithms and genetic programming, but the design is mostly flexible enough to incorporate other evolutionary systems. I guess library probably is a better word there. So it was, the goal initially was certainly to improve performance for push. And I guess that's still been my main use of it, other than some of the GA stuff in class. So maybe say a key goal is to, and I will just say improve. I think they mostly capitalize that. Evolution. And actually, evolution performance is sort of an awkward phrase because that could be interpreted as we are evolving more efficiently versus we are just using the hardware better. And we mean the hardware one. Yeah, so maybe improve the speed of the evolutionary processes. Especially when compared to languages like Clojure. Boom. Yeah, I like that. Making research and experimentation less hardware intense and more accessible. I like that. This is especially true, important for PushGP, where the interpretation of push programs can be very time consuming. So actually, and I meant to mention this and I forgot, there is, and Eustace, this may appeal to you. So am I going to be able to find this easily? Do I have this on this computer? Scholar, Google, code building, genetic programming, cited by, come on, where is that? Code building, genetic programming, faster. Oh, there we go. I think maybe, no, but I do think it's in archive. Well, that was not helpful. Code building, genetic programming. Is it going to be there? Or not. Okay, fine. I will try to post this later on Discord, but this is a reasonable place to start. So this is work primarily by Eddie Pantridge, who's a very bright guy. And the idea is there going to be a good picture? The idea is to, let's make this bigger, use a push-like system to evolve abstract syntax trees. And so instead of evolving push programs directly, your push actually is a set of instructions that just generate these ASTs, which can then be converted into programs in whatever language makes you happy. And the paper I was looking for is from just this year, and I don't know that it's actually officially out yet, which is why I was having trouble finding it. I think it's going to be in a Springer book from a workshop. But what they did is they went from the abstract syntax tree straight to machine code. So they would evolve these programs, which they would then generate machine code for, and run that, and it was very fast. So even though they've added the step of compilation, essentially, you only do that once, and then you run the program on lots of inputs when you're testing it, and that turned out to be like really fast. And so I think this is a really interesting idea, and you get the ability to evolve things that you can then just sort of display, print out, share in some ways in whatever language you want, as long as it, you know, is consistent with the AST that you're using. So they have like this AST, which describes programs here, you know, this is the same program in Python, in Haskell, and in Clojure. There's some pretty cool stuff going on here. And I think it solves a number of problems that we have with the push as it is. It makes it easier to create things like named variables, and the performance seems to be really good. I mean, I feel like there's like a really good idea here, and it would be, in a perfect world, it would be cool if we implemented this, but I don't know how likely that is, to be honest with you. Programmatically evolve assertions and preconditions in loops. Ooh. You know, I don't know if that's... So are you thinking like a human written loop, and then the system would evolve the assertions around that loop? Or are you thinking of evolving the loop and the assertions at... Okay, so it's a human... So that's a really interesting question. So Dijkstra's, who is long dead, so I'm speaking for somebody who's not around to defend themselves, but I'm pretty sure Dijkstra's position on this would be, that's a terrible idea. Because Dijkstra argued very strongly that you really needed to write code with verification in mind, that trying to do verification after the fact was a fool's errand. That the verification and the algorithm development needed to go hand in hand. And I think that a lot of that was coming from a universe where a lot of code was still, I mean, we're talking like the 70s and the 80s even, where a lot of code was still written with, you know, go-tos and crazy annoying things that make verification completely impossible. Now that I think a much higher proportion of the code that gets written in the world is structured in varying ways, which is not to say it can't be spaghetti in its own, you know, exciting way, but I think there is a lot more structure in the world. It's possible that something like that would work. And if it doesn't work, like if you have a particular input and you're like, hey, can you come up with some assertions that, you know, tell us what's going on here? And if the system's just unable to do so, then maybe that's a sign that that code needs work. And a system doesn't have to work on everything you throw at it. If you throw sufficiently awful stuff at it, it's not going to be successful. It's like code coverage tools. I can game them all kinds of ways, and I've seen students do it numerous times. It's completely feasible. But that doesn't sort of, just because they can be gamed doesn't mean they don't have potential value. You just have to use them sensibly. And, you know, just because a system like you're thinking of, Justus, might fail in some cases doesn't mean, yeah, it's an assistant, right? If it fails sometimes, that may tell you something useful. So I think there's an interesting possibility there. Sort of a version of kind of an inverse of fuzzing. So fuzzing, you have assertions and you try to manipulate the code to see if you can break the assertions. And here you're sort of saying, we've got the code. Can we come up with assertions that fuzz effectively, that tell us useful things and fail when we... Because I guess one thing you'd want to... Like, how do you decide if an assertion is useful? An assertion is useful if it can fail. So if you assert true, well, okay, fine. That is of no value to anybody. Well, hello, C-Films. Wonderful to see you. It's been a while. I am doing well. I hope you are doing well also. But if you haven't, and if you assert false, that's also not useful because that just fails all the time, and who cares? What you really want is you want assertions that are true. Well, I'm glad to hear that. That is wonderful. Assertions that are true, assuming your code works, on your test cases, but which can fail if... So you're talking about having an assertion at the end and trying to evolve assertions that can be proven to be locally consistent to formally prove the correction. Oh, so you're thinking there's a human written assertion that may or may not be readily provable, but you want to evolve consistent assertions that are consistent with the human-generated assertion, which you can prove the correctness of, which would be a different kettle of fish. Interesting. Yeah. So, right, because the thing I was talking about doesn't really get into proofs. It just gets into trying to find assertions that are of practical value, but not necessarily verification. But you're talking about actually, can you come up with assertions that are formally verifiable? Interesting. So I'm curious, are you actually using some kind of verification tool, or is it all pencil and paper? Because I actually worked in this space a long time ago, but I haven't really kept up. And I'm not really sure on what the state of the tooling is. I know it's gotten a lot better, but I don't really know kind of where that sits right now. And I don't know if you're doing tool stuff or if you're doing just sort of pencil and paper kind of verification. But I think this code building GP stuff is very cool. I'll share this link in the, and I'll try to find the other paper and share a link on Discord. So I don't know that it has been done in the way that you're thinking of. I'm not sure. I think that would be something that, some more lit review would have to be done. But I think that there's interesting possibilities there. So I think we'll just say this project is split in several sub-packages. EC core. What are... So EC core, EC linear, EC macros. Hey, look. Really? Oh, yeah, you did. So we should do that. Oh, that's a good idea. Is it to? Let me catch that quick. The push language. This is probably our best bet as a starting point, actually. Or yeah, that was nasty and scary. Let's stick with Eddie's. Yeah, so I lost your links when I copy pasted. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. Gotcha. Okay, we can do that. I feel like they should probably be mentioned somewhere, though, that they exist, and sort of say what you just said. And they should definitely have their own READMEs. But I think it would be worth even at the top level, because if I'm, looking at the top level and I see these packages and I see these macros, it would, would certainly seem to be relevant there. So we want packages. Oh, actually, it was trying to help me out there. Really? How good of you. Zippity doodah. README.md. Wow. Boom. Oh, I got it. Did I just get the wrong? Yeah, I just get the wrong thing. No, I don't want EC macros. Go away. I realize why you might think I want EC macros, but I don't. I don't want that. Here we go. Okay. Okay. So then it'd probably be good to have a brief, like one sentence description of each of these here with then more detailed information. In the README. So were you thinking like, paragraph of stuff and then paragraph of stuff like that? I'm going to turn you off. You are actually getting a little annoying. You were kind of helpful, but I think. So you were going to just have it in the, like that. Gotcha. So we'd have, the text would just be right there in the deal instead of in a sub bullet. Okay. I'm gonna close you for now. So EC Core is this package contains the so what is in EC Core? So a lot of it's the individuals. This notion of genome population, key data structures such as individual, population, let's say genome, let's put genome here, individual population, and generation. We could, but I don't know that that's necessary. I mean, I'm hopeful that the module structure like tells me what I kind of need to know is the main thing. Yeah, that's a fair point. Would it make sense to say key concepts? Or maybe even say traits and data structures, not traits, and data structures for key, and I guess we could just call that structs since the whole thing's trains. It also provides all the operators, which I think is an important part of this. An operator, which encapsulates logic transforming one type to another. This is used for things like selection, which transforms a population into a selected individual, and scoring, which transforms an individual into a score. Put an empty line. What is that actually? Oh, that is, yeah, okay. That makes, I think that's more readable. Yes, actually mutation, and mutation and recombination operators, which transform a genome into one or more genomes into a new child genome. Boom, bop, boop, beep. There we go. Okay. And I think that probably is all the stuff that needs to be mentioned here. I think that sort of captures the main stuff that's happening. So yay, EC core, EC linear, source. Okay. And then let's put in our blank lines actually. This package contains implementation and support tools for linear genomes. So actually, instead of support tools, I should say mutation and recombination tools. Operators would be better for linear genomes. Sure. I am okay with that. Yeah, I tend to write full sentences when in contexts where that is perhaps not strictly necessary or useful. Of linear genomes along with associated mutation recombination operators. Come on. An implementation of the key concepts. Ah, that's a good idea. Of the key concepts from EC Core specifically for linear genomes. It also includes associated mutation and recombination operators. And we probably don't need to get into the details. And maybe mention bit string in particular, which probably could be simplified out. Defines and implementation. Yeah, good. Make it shorter. Defines and implementate. There, yes. Includes a specific implementation of bit string of a fixed length bit string genome as is frequently used in genetic algorithms. La 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 la. And then defines or definitions for, let's see where we headed here. So we're not doing Mac, this is push. Linear in this context means operations on bit strings and blah, blah, blah. Well, okay, I like that. That's nice. Is frequently used in genetic algorithms. And vectors of simple types. Fixed length and variable length vectors of simple types. I don't know that we need and that would go away, I think. So defines an implementation of the key concepts from EC Core specifically for linear genomes. Maybe that's a very long sentence, and say this includes bit strings as frequently used in genetic algorithms and both fixed length and variable length vectors of simple types. And I guess since it's actually a type in the system, that would make sense. Now we could get real fancy and have, ooh, I like that. Common associated mutation recombination operators are also provided. We could make all of these references to specific types links into the documentation. That just seems really tedious. And I don't know if people are going to want to link from here to the documentation or not. Yeah, so do that later. I'm going to say for these types, yes. Good, thank you. Good catch. Yeah. Avoid sort of a tedious, time-consuming thing of less value in favor of like getting the actual work done. Okay, so push. Yeah, so this is where life gets a little weird because push is kind of confusing. So this is really so actually I want to look, if we look at, say this, what do we get? We get cases. Okay, so cases and target function, that stuff, that evaluation stuff, that's really arguably more about evolution than it is about push. Because you only have the cases because you're evolving things, not because you're just evaluating programs. The plushy genome stuff is also arguably more about evolution. Yeah, but I was sort of more interested in seeing kind of what we actually used. And where we used it, because there's stuff that I'm not sure we actually, I mean, I didn't want to get distracted. There are the things that exist to support, say, plushy, but which you wouldn't sort of directly interact with in main here. And main, I know, is about evolution, right? So I'm sort of starting from main and saying, well, what does it need? And then which parts of that are sort of push interpreter. And so all the instruction stuff is definitely interpreter stuff, and the push VM stuff is interpreter stuff. So like these two lines are interpreter stuff, and these two lines are arguably more evolutionary stuff. So that gives us a way to think about how we want it. So genome, plushy, and evaluation are more evolution, and instruction and push VM are more and then error. So error is also the VM stuff because it's about how we fail. Yeah. Okay, so that's more or less. Yes, I think that's true. I think that I think cases don't belong here. Where they end up, I think EC core seems like a reasonable place to send them, but yeah, they don't belong here. That was definitely something that I felt during the course, that there are times when cases just didn't make sense where they were, and there are other implementations, other ways of evolving programs, etc., that would also want to use cases. So we want to move them up the food chain somewhat. So yeah, work in progress. I mean, at some level, all of it's work in progress, but I guess push is more work in progress than other things. So are you kind of just envisioning something like this, or at the front, or yes, I agree that they're more stable. And I guess if that stays there, then I think if that's there, it's pretty clear. If we'd done what I had done at one point, where this was sort of following right after, this could get lost. But your idea of sort of breaking these out, this stands there pretty clearly. So I think that works fine. So, okay. So defines both. Actually, I think provides both an implementation of the push programming language, which again probably is worth relinking to. And tools for evolving push programs in a push GP system. Do we say more? Or does the additional discussion happen in the README for the push package? I mean, I think, I didn't mean to do that. I mean, I think there's things to say, but I think a lot of them may make more sense in the README for the push package rather than here. So I think we could just call that good. Now you think we wouldn't even mention these two things here. We would just have READMEs for those packages and possibly talk about them in places like contributing. I'm inclined to actually say and maybe don't bother bulleting them out. To provide support for the other packages and should typically not be used directly. Instead, use the re-exports from EC core and push. And I wonder, your start was briefer than mine. Yes, we should. Thank you. So maybe I should say there are also macro packages, because then if we add more, Oh, nope, come on. Boom. Da-da-da-da-da, packages, EC macros. And that has a README because Justus is good and does that kind of thing. Packages, EC, push macros, README. Possibly not, but at least there was a file, which, there isn't for the other ones. And we should certainly fix that. Okay. So let's have a look. Does that look okay? Also macro packages. Oh, look at that. We even zipped over there by accident when I clicked on something. And push macros that provide support other packages should typically not be used directly. Instead, actually, I want to split. These should typically not be used directly. Instead, yeah. These should typically not be used directly. Instead, use the re-exports from EC Core and push. We could. I mean, it wouldn't hurt while we're here. Packages, EC Core, README, and push. Packages, push, README. Okay. Yeah, as a rule, link everything when you can. Okay. So now, question is, let's see, what is it? It's 11:17. We got time. Do we move on to this, or do we go into these READMEs? I think it makes more sense to go into these READMEs while we're in the mind frame of documenting what we have, and then we can get into the aspirational side of things later. And we may not get there today, like just simply documenting what exists is taking time. But as you said, it's way better than it was. It actually tells some kind of truth about the world, which it did not before. So, yay! And now we need to get somebody to make us a logo and do all the stuff. Yeah, okay. So we need to look at the READMEs for the other packages. Actually, let's make a commit, actually. I think this is a good time to commit. Actually, okay, before I commit, stage, go away. I had said what it is and what we would like it to become. Now, I was being kind of facetious when I wrote those headers. Well, and actually, I like doing graphic design. So now that I'm partially retired, that could be a thing that I could actually think about. I actually have some ideas. Problem is I don't draw well. I come up with ideas, but I know people who draw, so maybe I could come up with a logo. But I've got these kind of, somewhat silly. I will take that one. Labels. Do we like these labels? Are we okay with these labels for now? Do we want a better, stronger, faster, something? for these two guys here? Or are they reasonable because they describe what is actually happening at the moment? Yeah, okay. I think that makes more sense. I think project structure and aspirations. / goals. Yeah, I think that's better. Yeah, I have a tendency sometimes to generate sort of flippant labels for things when they're probably more productive. Yeah, right. These two things probably do go up here, don't they? And then that's going to look more sensible. And actually, I think I should just say a prototype. And mostly, I think, is maybe a little generous. Hardware intensive. I got the wrong word there. And more accessible. Especially import. Yeah, very good. But you do have to import it. Tent in PushGP. Cool. Yeah, I think that moving those paragraphs was good. This project is split into several sub-packages. Oh, I guess also it would make sense to mark down. If we turn the linting back on, does it yell at us? Aha! Oh, yeah. It wants consistency in list markings. And that was it. So that wasn't a big deal. Yay, team. Like a prototype of an evolutionary computation library in Rust. Current implementation focuses on genetic algorithms and genetic programming, but the design is hopefully flexible enough to incorporate other evolutionary systems. What you thinking? And actually, compared to implementations in languages like Clojure. Yes. Yeah. I think we both had kind of the same idea at the same time. So when compared to similar systems, I like that, implemented in languages like Clojure or Python, Clojure or Python, and then this would link to Clojish. Boom. Oh, stop it. And then this is going to link to PyGP or something similar. So let's go find some links. Close-ish. Oh, come on. There we go. And propeller, probably. There we go. That one. And we have a fair number of international students who have their laptop set up in their native language, and they'll come into the office and I'll reach over to type something and just chaos ensues because the keyboard is set up for their language system. And I feel bad. So PyGP, is that going to be, I don't know why I had the branches, but whatever. Okay. Good luck with that. I have spent a little time trying to learn Japanese. It made me cry and ran away. And to the degree that I put any effort into languages, it's still mostly German, actually. Because I'd had this thought before we ended up sort of moving into retirement that we might spend a sabbatical year in Austria working with some people there. And so I was like, I should try to spiff up my German. And now I'm just kind of doing it out of inertia. And I like it, but I think I need to sort of move away from just trying to like do exercises to actually spending time like reading German or listening to German or things like that. Or just go live in Germany for a while, or a German-speaking country. Okay, close-ish. So actually, what I probably want here is closure, such as close-ish, boom, or propeller, or Python. So propeller, or Python. Cool. Okay. Now, one thing as I was doing this, and I want to be a little careful not to cast shade on the wrong people, I think another goal for me, and now the for me part of this is important if I'm going to start to play a different role in all of this, was to try to really focus on correctness. I think there's been a fair bit of kind of sloppy programming on some of these systems, and they don't really do what they say they do. And I think this has been kind of a chronic issue in the field in a lot of ways. I do actually think there are some issues, especially in Propeller. Closure, I think, is a little more does what it says, but even there, I think there are some issues. PyGP in particular, I don't know all that well. Deep, I do know better. So actually, maybe I should mention deep if I'm gonna like rattle stuff off. Do I link to Deep's documentation, or do I link to their GitHub? Deep. I think if we're doing GitHub elsewhere, let's do GitHub here. So Python, such as PyGP or Deep. The hope is to make research and experimentation less hardware intensive and more accessible. Da, 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 da. Okay, let me catch up on the chat. Yes, so I think that, you can't just do university CSI stuff your whole life, or that's not good for your brain. Which is part of why I like doing other things, like music and gardening and stuff like that. So I'm definitely a fan. I'm sure your faculty would be thrilled to know that your homework is the one place where you don't particularly focus on correctness. I find that highly amusing. Let's see. And so you actually thought the docs would be better. Which we could do. I mean, what's the top of the search results depends a lot on search tool and etc. So that actually pointed at GitHub, but the next one is, totally unrelated. Okay. Deep evolutionary algorithms. So the first is the GitHub, and the second is the documentation. And I think the GitHub links directly to the documentation, whereas weirdly the documentation does not link easily to the GitHub. I mean, that's going to be on the GitHub. That's kind of indirect. That's into the GitHub. No, it's not, actually. Yeah, it's kind of strange. You'd kind of think that there'd be a big, obvious link here to the GitHub, but is that what this thing down here is? No, that's just a read the docs thing. Huh. So that's weird. So I think that I'll stick to just going to the GitHub, and then people can get from there to the documentation if they care. Yeah, I think that especially if it is automatically graded and no one else is likely to look at it, then it does set up a bad incentive structure. It doesn't really encourage you to do the right thing on that one, that's too bad. And I think this is a common problem with educational systems in general, is that you ask people to make something, whether it's a piece of code or an essay, but it's unclear like who's going to look at it and whether anybody really cares. And so it's hard to be motivated if it doesn't feel like there's any life for this thing that I'm making after I turn it in. And I don't think we've really worked that out. And it's easier to do certain things at a small institution like where I am You know, if I've got 10, 15 people in a class, there are ways in which I can be like, you're going to make something, but other people in the class are going to see it, and we're going to have a conversation about it. And that's time consuming, but it's at least sort of feasible. But when you have, 100, 200, 400 people in a class, you can't really do that. And yeah, it does, I think, set up not good incentives. Oh, seven. Well, yeah, right. So who's gonna sit down and look at 900 program solutions? Yeah, that would just be insane. And so this is one of the reasons I don't teach at a place like that, because that's not what I wanted to do. And I wanted to be able to actually interact with students and their work. But, even with 10, 15, 20 students, I don't always do it nearly as well as I would like. So, sigh. Soon AI will do it all. Students will use AI to generate the work. Faculty will use AI to grade the work, and it'll just be AIs talking to each other and pretending that there's an educational system happening. I'm so sad. Okay. That is not why we're here. Okay, so we have links to things. I think that's an improvement. Cool. So, did you have other comments on those opening paragraphs before we commit? Okay. Yeah. We'll just turn the stream into Nick rambles on about stuff. And there'll be very little actual programming. Sigh. Oh well. Maybe that's more interesting. Who knows? Okay, so what have we done here? We have replaced the, oh no, let's see, add project description and actually add description of project and structure. I think that's probably true. Combination of both. Whether I get the balance right, it's probably a matter of opinion. And of course, what works for some people is going to be different for what works for other people, and you do what you can. And so this replaces the short, unhelpful, and not entirely correct description with a somewhat, with a better description and a brief outline of the project structure. Now need to write READMEs for each of the packages. Now, one thing that just occurred to me, do we want, actually, I'll come back here. We don't have anything about how to build or use this. And it seems like that should there should be at least a little bit here. Oh yeah, we should open the PR for this. Good catch. I think that's here. I think if we go here, it'll be like, really? Oh, I haven't pushed anything. That's why. Nothing's happened. Push, push, push. So this title is not really this anymore. This is just this commit. That's really issue-y stuff. And that would be A, not an. How to get started. We also added READMEs for each of the packages. And that's going to be a draft pull request. Come on. Hello. There we go. Oh, yeah. I should totally add a closes. Thank you. Closes. README. Boom. Oh, wow. Okay, well, Merry Christmas. I'll come back to that later. 49 double-digit issue numbers. I think we're into triple digits, right? Yeah, I mean, 369, because with issues and pull requests. So, yes, we are closing an old issue, pretty early one. Okay, so yeah, so we should add a how to get started header, and then we'll fill that in later too. So actually, I'm gonna over here. How to, oops. Hot? Good grief. There we go. Oh, that's Microsoft is not using Gemini. I just turned that on to see what would happen because it was available, and I was like, and I have a Gemini thing, so I was like, yeah, I'll turn that on. We'll see what happens. And I hadn't actually seen it do anything yet. I think I turned it on just in the last day or two. And lo and behold, it did things, which is a little weird. And is it going to do, oh, this is going to get really noisy. If this is going to do things every time I push, I may need to turn that off. I think that could be real annoying real fast. I'll leave that be for the moment, but that may need to get turned off, because if that's going to actually do stuff every time we do something, that's going to get real old. we have a little poem. READMEs, clear and bright, guide the way through code's dark night. Knowledge takes its flight. Okay, somebody was having a little too much fun there. Okay, back to that. So let's look at READMEs for other packages. What do we got 15 minutes, so we're not going to get through all this today, but we made progress on some stuff. Yeah, I didn't actually mention the URL in the top level README, which probably should. I wonder if it just goes there. How does that look? It's not obvious that that's a, well, no, I think that's probably two. Oh, good. What did you do to make them less noisy? Oh, you did. Was it just a matter of the collapsing? That does help. So, so I think we should refer to the domain here. What if we do it here? Yeah, maybe. Because there really isn't anything at the other end, is there? So, okay. So then we probably don't want... Well, do we still want this to be a link here? Or... And I'm not sure I understand when you say just add a CNAME to the GitHub. Are you talking about adding a link here? Or are you talking about something in the README? I'm not sure I understand exactly what you intend by that. So if we ignore that for the moment, oh, I see. Just have this route to the GitHub until there's something for it to actually go to. I'm finally there. I'm a little slow. But yes. Yeah, that would make sense. In which case, we could leave this here and it would just sort of refer back to itself. But this would be potentially useful if we were to split crates into different repositories in the future, then having each crate linked to the sort of home base would make sense. If we never split them up, it doesn't hurt, it just doesn't do anything. So, okay. So this crate provides core evolutionary computation functionality such as interfaces for individuals, generations, scores, mutations, recombinators. So I think I would be inclined to say something about operators and move those down there. So provides traits and structs for core evolutionary computation. Well, I don't know, maybe just leaving it as functionality. Interfaces for individuals, generations, source opens. Come on, open up. Oh, population. So we want genomes, oops, individuals, populations, and generations. Now those could be linked to things, but I think that's a later thing. Also maybe a thing to do when stuff's more stable. And then this also includes support for operators. Do we want backticks on everything here? Like, should I be backticking all of this stuff? And this, or should I just leave these? I mean, I think actually backticking makes sense, makes it clear that these are actual types in the world or in the implementation. So backticking away, which encapsulate logic that maps from one type to another. This includes which maps from an individual to a score. And score is in here somewhere, right? Where is score? Cool. Well, thank you for doing that. Unhindered.ec. Oops, that's because I can't spell. Oh, you're right. Yeah. We should have a README here. Oh, so many READMEs. Should that be a part of this, or should that be its own pull or issue? I mean, I think this would be mostly. Oh, you're right. It can't really be part of this pull request. It could, yeah. because it's not actually we just edit it by hitting the pencil here. So we could copy, so it should be an issue. In go here, go here. New issue. Add it to the .github repo. What? I'm not sure I understand. Oh. Oh, look at that. I didn't even know that was a thing. Holy moly. Well, that's kind of cool. I had no idea. Well, learn something new every day. So then it does make sense to make the issue here. Session level README. This can probably copy some of the introductory text from the unhindered-ec project README. That'd be great. So cool. That is very interesting. The profile README will also appear on the organization's profile. Is this the organization's profile? Actually, I don't know. Gotcha. Okay. So actually, so my issue there. So this README would go here, but not on the organization. What we put in profile README would appear on the organization. So you can have two separate READMEs. That makes sense. Because you might want to have something different here than what's in profile. Yeah. So actually, I should probably make it clear. Edit. In profile README.md. Yeah, because I'll forget that that's what I'm supposed to do. So, well, that's fascinating. Who knew? Who knew? Okay. Oh, it's 11:59. So maybe this will dangle. But obviously this needed to happen, and I think that was a productive 2 hours. Oh, good. Well, thank you. That nice use of HTTP return codes. So maybe we want to do more of this because we are clearly not done, and more documentation would be a good thing. So, okay, let me think for a second. Yeah, I agree. I think this was pretty productive. So what's going on? This is Sunday. I've been threatening to do additional streams, but I'm probably not doing anything this week that's new, because, among other things, I've got a lot of gardening to do. It's got to get done before I leave town. So next week is normal. Am I right about that? No, next week is not necessarily normal. Yes, next week is not necessarily normal. So what's happening? So Saturday, that would be the 24th of May, 2 to 4 p.m. CDT UTC -5. More Codicy. Because I think that was fun and that worked well. So I'll do a little more of that because I like that. And then Sunday, 25 May, 10 to noon, CDT UTC -5. Oh, nice. That's very cool. More on READMEs in the EC project. If I stream. So the if I stream part is I'm probably driving to Wisconsin. Yes, I'm sure, but thank you. Driving to Wisconsin sometime during the week, and options at the moment are Thursday and Sunday. It's a holiday weekend next weekend here, and I don't really want to drive on Friday or Saturday if I can avoid it. And if I drive Thursday, then I'll be streaming from Wisconsin Saturday and Sunday. And if I don't drive until Sunday, then I would miss Sunday's stream. But I'd really like to do Sunday's stream. But it may depend somewhat on the state of the gardening and some other things. So not entirely sure if I'll stream Sunday, but I'll try. Yes, get gardening, go. And then the following weekend, things should be normal, except I'll be in Wisconsin. So I'll be streaming from Wisconsin that weekend, which is the end of May, beginning of June. And then I'll be back home the first full weekend of June. And also somewhere along the way, I do actually probably want to think about some additional streaming. But that's going to probably wait till I'm home from this trip to Paducah, Kentucky with my mom to see quills, which will be exciting. And so sometime in June, maybe we'll try to spin up some other things. And I also want to, over on the Discord, have some polls or something to try to find out what, if I do some additional things, like what should I work on? When would that happen? What would people find useful? And if you didn't notice Zitsu's observation on Discord, I did actually finally post a video for the first time in 1,000,006 years. Oh, that's weird. Okay. So yesterday's video got posted. So there it is. It's probably pretty terrible in a lot of ways. The start is very sort of erratic. Doesn't get to like actually any programming for, I don't know, half an hour or something. So there is a universe where some editing probably would have been a good idea, but you know, it's fun. So I did it. I posted a video again, and I'll see if I can get today's video posted as well. So thank you all very much. I think we'll call that a win and head off. Yeah, exactly. And so hopefully I should be here Saturday, definitely. Sunday, that's slightly less clear, but definitely should be streaming from somewhere on Saturday. So thank you all very much. It's wonderful. Greatly appreciate it. We'll talk to you later. Goodbye.